in prison for being in a political, I mean, through a political environment, which is really not criminal. But then again, we have those people who have been criminals themselves, yet today they've made it into the leadership sphere. And that is what I'm calling. It's a little bit off for us to say, oh, once somebody goes into prison and, you know, they come out, they are changed, then they can. No. There is a reason as to why that chapter is in our constitution. And if you want to, you know, every Tom, Dick, and Harry, you know, despite what they did in the past to be, then we must do something about that chapter. We either follow it down to the core or we remove it from our constitution. Having said that, true to the fact, yesterday a little bit of politics was played, because I also had Kalonzo himself talk about corruption and how things should move. But again, Sonko did not touch on him, but me and you and Ben fully well know that Kalonzo is not as clean. We still remember the NYS land in Yatta. All right? So one thing, there's something Ben used to say a long time ago, that most of these people, their shoelaces are tied.
Yes.
And you see, the more we keep talking about the issue of corruption, we must know, and I'll agree with Mheshimiwa here, that it also starts with us. The institutions that have been set up by the Constitution must be seen to work. The best the president can do, as a matter of fact, and I've heard them, you know, yesterday saying the president should, you know, crack, and everybody has been pointing their fingers to the president. You must do this, you must sack the corrupt. Do you know, Zainab, the best the president can do today is just sack or fire somebody in government? That's it. And then what happens after that? Will the departments that have been given powers by the Constitution, all arms of government, be it parliament or be it judiciary, will they live up to the true meaning of their mantle? Because that's, I mean, the president came to parliament some time back and let out some of his key CSs, and he has kept repeating this. Right. Today, Charity Ngilu is the governor of Kitui. You know, Anne Waiguru, we still remember the NYS, she's the governor of Kirinyaga. Right. So there is something that we must all agree, that all these arms of government must work in tandem if we are going to fight corruption. By the way, if we leave it to the executive, trust you me, it will never go anywhere.
All right, Gabriel, just hold your thought just for a moment. Spoke to and is saying, you know, it's not time for politics, we just want development. And just for the purpose of reference, let's just hear what Sonko had to say yesterday during the prayer meeting organized by KOTU.
Huyu kamanda amegrab manyumba pale, amejenga kwa barabara, kwa road reserve. Hiyo ni corruption. Mnaogopa kusema kwa nini? Wewe usikuja hapa kutuambia corruption na wewe ulikuwa pia mwizi na kwa kwanza. Tusiogopane. Tunamfurahisha poli na kanisa. Corruption is corruption. Hakuna ya juzi ama ya jana. Huyu mzee amejenga hapo kwa barabara. Public utility ilikuwa posta. Kenya hii huyu alimaliza. Alafu mnatuletea mfano wa siasa mbaya ile ilikuwa kwa kanisa huko. Mkisema Sonko ni umbwa, haichaguliwa Nairobi. Hiyo siasa hatutaki irudi Nairobi. Lazima tusimame imara na vita dhidi ya ufisadi.
There you have it, politicians exchanging not so nice words at the very altar, you know. And I know I've spoken about the sanctity of the altar and it should be respected and everything. But is it the fact that the war on a graft has become so politicized that it is dividing even the church leaders?
It's not the war that is politicized. It is the government and everybody is corrupt. That is the reality of the matter, and that's why this topic is everywhere. The beneficiaries of corruption are defending their stealing, and the few who think that it is a vice that needs to be eradicated are supporting it. But I take issue with some of those statements. You know, Sonko is clearly fighting people whom he fought with in the 2017 Nairobi gubernatorial elections. That was what is actually.
So you think this is quite of a personal
that's
kind of
personal
attack?
Because the Peter Kenneth and Commander were in one wing against Sonko. That's, I think, what he was trying to do. But more importantly, which I wanted to talk about is this idea that public officers can use their own resources to perform public functions. You know, are we really a serious country? Because I read from just the script by Muredi.
Yes.
Sonko is saying that he did certain jobs with his own resources. And we are also concerned about corruption, and we are saying that some of our colleagues in leadership are contributing humongous amounts of money, way above their known source of income.
The two-way sword.
So we are asking ourselves, is leadership going to be on a highest bidder basis? Because you're telling me that anybody who has no money will never be able to lead. We are saying that, like, I've taken issue with the wing that is headed by the Deputy President for contributing over 20 million in a weekend in Harambes. Can we be able to know the kind of businesses that the Deputy President of Kenya runs, so that we get the businesses listed for us? We know the income statement of these businesses.
Mheshimiwa, the resident who spoke to our reporter Bernardo Juang said, you know, I don't care what money politicians use on, you know, we can't judge people based on their sin. Should we be judging people?
No, okay, that is his opinion, but I think on a broader perspective, and I think we are a country, we are a government, we are people in government, and we are not we don't live in isolation. We know how our better governments have been run, and how the people who run better governments have conducted themselves, how they have behaved. We are not the best example of how government should be run, and we need to copy best practices. So we cannot just say that we do not care. Ask me, if I produce 10 million today in Harambee, ask me why did I get it? And I think that's where we need to start. As long as a country, as a people, we are going to worship people who use resources which we don't know where they have gotten from, to place us and to get us into their boxes, I think we are not going to run this. This country is going to collapse. And these are the things that we must speak out as leaders, and we must speak out as Kenyans. And we must also educate Kenyans on what they need to focus on. Okay. Because that particular public is clearly misinformed.
All right. Before Gabriel, before that, Ben, do you agree on that?
You know, there is what should be, or what ought to be, and what is. And that distinction is usually very important to make for us to know the kind of solutions we need to prescribe for the problems that we are facing. About 2 years ago, I believe, my friend Dr. Alex Awiti, who heads the East African Institute at the Aga Khan University, conducted a research. And the majority of the respondents were young people aged, I think, between 18 and 35. And you'll be surprised that over 70% of them had no qualms at all participating or partaking in corruption. That is the generation we have. So based on also one of that particular viewer who was speaking to your correspondent, the majority of Kenyans, we have reached a point whereby corruption has been normalized. Corruption has become a way of living, to the extent that parents still have to bribe to get opportunities for their children in primary school and secondary schools. You know, the problem is sometimes we are looking far up there. We don't look at the small things we do amongst ourselves on a daily basis. Corruption is so deeply entrenched so that when somebody actually undertakes or does an act that is outside what has been normalized, they appear to be completely abnormal. Like you saw how Kenyans were shocked when Governor Kibwana was able to deliver a hospital at 136 million shillings. Yet MTRH or some upgrading is supposed to cost some 28 billion shillings. You see, we have reached a point whereby, and this would be the challenge I would want to pose to Mheshimiwa. There has been massive failure by Parliament to actually regulate or even tame corruption in the executive. Because by going by global standards, the executive has always had this massive appetite to go rogue. And if there are not sufficient checks and balances, 99% of the times, any executive will just go rogue. Because power somehow gets into their heads. We remember even when the NAC administration came into power, people like Chris Murungaru, we remember them, and we saw how it gets into people. We have seen Duale telling people that your pesa siya mama yako, and those kinds of things. So it remains the responsibility of the oversight arm of government to regulate these excesses. Unfortunately, it has not been. Look at what happened with the sugar report. We were told there was mercury in our sugar. And there were reports actually from the Kenya Bureau of Standards. Then that just disappeared. These guys exchanged money in toilets in Parliament and that died. There were reports about contaminated maize. There has been reports about actually excesses in terms of the Treasury awarding funny licenses to people to import maize at the expense of local farmers. These are things that can easily be tamed by a sane parliament. It has not happened. So what we have is we are all on a free fall. And I think even when we are blaming the church, they are like, so why should we be left out? Everybody is actually running with this sick gravy tray. So why should we be left out? And even now it is reaching a point because, let me tell you, Zinab, you'll be very surprised. Contrary to the funny statistics that Rotich was releasing last week, because he has a funny way of coming up with figures. I don't know what's wrong with this guy. He has a funny way of cooking up figures in his office, on his laptop, and just throwing them to Kenyans. Contrary to what he was talking about, employment and economic growth at 6.3% and all that, currently, we have an average of about 15 to 17 million young people in this country who wake up every day to do nothing. That's a fact.
All right.
So when we are talking about the fight against corruption, we have a government that has deliberately insisted on pushing the majority of the population to a corner whereby anything goes. It is difficult to insist on a hungry man to adhere to any principles. It is impossible, actually.
All right.
They would do anything. They would do anything. Just
Alright.
they would do anything, actually, just to get along. Even if it means actually doing criminal activities.
Okay.
So the idea should be, we should start critically looking at how do we begin to address this cancer from exactly where it begins.
And look, it's something that we keep talking about, but as it becomes lethargic, I know Gabriel you want to talk about that, but we only have 3 minutes, so I'll give Mheshimiwa just 2 minutes to speak on that.
It's thrown a challenge at Parliament
Yes.
for failing to oversight the executive, exercising the executive. But I think Parliament is a reflection of the society.
True.
When you have people coming to Parliament on the basis of how much money they gave you,
Yes.
when you get illiterates in Parliament who cannot even say, Mr. Speaker, sir, what are you expecting Parliament to do? And I think we are just people's representative. The people still have a mandate to force Parliament to do certain legislations. We want to see the Arambe Avenue crowded with people demanding for justice from Parliament. I think that's when Parliament will wake up. Yeah, but I think as at now, Parliament, the one we have, is cannot deliver for Kenyans. It is Parliament which is also been conflicted. The current members of Parliament are campaigning for 2022, and they are not interested in
I
Team
like
Kenya.
your honesty, Mheshimiwa.
They are not working for
Yes.
Team Kenya.
Quite
Because
honest.
we have,
Yes.
And they will do nothing.
we have,
By the way,
Yes.
very soon,
Yes.
that Parliament will blow up.
You foresee that?
Because we are going to see a situation when Team Kenya is going to try to do things which is relevant for Kenya, and they will be the things will be contrary to what people want Ruto to become president in 2022 will be looking for. Parliament will blow up because Ruto controls Parliament. He controls a large percentage of Parliament. That is the truth. And those people don't want to hear anything about progress.
Zainab, by the way, I have to commend Honorable Atandi for what he just said. I have never had a member of Parliament actually sticking up to what is wrong and the kind of dishonesty that is running through Parliament.
True.
And you realize what Ben has just said. And what Ben was actually trying to put across is who can censor who? Parliament, you've heard their problems. They are the 10,000 people who are going to, the 10,000 shillings people who share the money in toilets. It did not come from outside, it came from Parliament. This is what we are doing, all right? And here we are talking about a very serious matter, health. You know, when we are told our sugars and our produces are, are contaminated. You're talking about a judiciary where the former Chief Justice, Mutunga, said he has rogue elements within the judiciary. The current Chief Justice has alluded to the very same thing. I have judges who are corrupt. All right? You're talking about an executive that has actually even gone ahead to question the people who are working in government. I remember the president himself, sometime in Mombasa, when he said him and his chief of general of staff were going around Mombasa at night without nobody knowing, because he was saying, if I gave this money to my CSS, that cost would have been hiked almost 3-4 times. All right? So, like Ben is asking, who can censor who? The issue about corruption, actually, it's a very serious anomaly in this country. When Sonko was talking yesterday, and you know, and I agree to a very big extent, what Sonko was trying to say is that, you know what, you do not have the moral authority to lecture anyone on matters corruption. But he also has, or is sitting on a very hot plate when you say Maina Kamanda has built homes or houses or whatever it is on road reserves. You're the governor, bring them down. We are seeing houses coming down, with our brought down, bring them down. We had your conversation with Waitito when you were telling him he has a building in town which has not gone through the right approvals. Bring it down.
Being the county boss.
Exactly, you're the county boss. So please don't push the bucket. Do what is supposed to be done. The money is going to be with you, but at the end of the day, if we have to fight and really win on this war against corruption, we must get serious about the Article 6 of our Constitution.
Fantastic. And on that point, we're going to take a very short break here on NTV Today. A lot of comments and reactions on our social media platforms. Talk to us. NTV Today is the hashtag at NTV Kenya. Zainab Ismail. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back. All right, thank you so much for joining us. You're watching NTV Today, and of course our conversation here is on the state of politics in the country, the debt in the country. But before we even continue with the conversation, back to our conversation this morning. So let's talk about the debt issue in the country, and we'll also talk about what the president went to do in China. So the president went, he was accompanied by former Premier Raila Odinga. They went to source for some loans, and apparently there is an issue, and I don't know where we're missing this point. So the State House came out to say and clarify the fact that apparently there were misleading reports that the president did not go there to seek a loan for the extension of the SGR loan. But before that, the former premier himself said that we're going there to do the same thing. So where are we getting a miss? Did we get it wrong, Gabriel?
Zainab, first of all, you know, this is a very delicate issue. And let me begin by saying, you know, yesterday I was watching the President's Chief of Staff, Nzio Kawaita, and he actually spoke about some key pertinent issues, things that I totally agreed with. One of them is that, and I've heard also somebody in Uganda actually alluding to the very same fact. One thing we cannot run away from as the East African community is that there is a very serious deficit in development. I mean, these are deficits that are, you know, that have been mopping up over the period of about 30, 35, 40 years. So there's that element of us being almost in tandem with where the world economies are going, failure to which investors will be bolting right, left. Now, having said that, there is a key area where people are forgetting. The Beijing meeting, and I followed it very closely, was not an issue about Kenya alone. It was on the Belt Initiative, Belt and Road Initiative. 60 nations and 60 leaders actually went there, or 60 nations were represented. But what I took home, apart from this now political nuance that we are talking in this country about the SGR between Naivasha and Kisumu or Malaba, to me that's something very tiny, right? What I have really dug deep to see is some of the collaborations that were brought in. Even forget the JKIA Westlands Road. I know that is a very good directive of a PPP, which actually is what I've always called for. Yes, loans are good, but if we cannot manage them, then they are going to actually create havoc. But if we are going to enter into partnerships where we are seeing almost a give and take kind of thing, Kenyans will start understanding. Look at the Nairobi-Mombasa superhighway, which is done by this American company Bechtel. Another great, partnership, which is almost private. If we are able to get into these kind of give and take scenarios, I believe Kenyans will start getting it. we have encompassed in ourselves the issue of loans. And yes, I can agree it's going to cause a problem if we cannot manage these loans properly. Nobody is arguing on that. What I want to see is the kind of collaborations that are being signed. Just the other day, before Amina left the Ministry of Education, 430 scholarships through the Confucius Academic Institute. The Chinese Academy of Sciences have also given this country many scholarships that are coming directly to the students in this country. What is that going to do? To me, that is the kind, you know, of unions that I want to see in the next 20, 30 years, because I know that is what will do us good. When you look at the horticultural memorandum that they also signed with the avocados things.
Yes, import of avocados.
Somebody talked about 50-something billion. To me, this is what makes sense, all right? The SGR, we may need it, yes. It is good for us to sit down, mostly for this, you know, the third leg that you're talking, you know, Naivasha, Kisumu, Malaba. It is good for us to talk about it. It is good for us to engage with our partners, you know, Uganda, you know, and when they say it will go all the way to Congo and stuff, it is good for us to have that conversation. But for now, the low-hanging fruits is what we are talking about. And I'm liking the very fact after 2 days, the president was able to bring something which to me makes sense. All right, remove politics from it, Zainab, and you'll start to see what you're talking about. Because if you are telling me that, hang on a minute, probably we are not agreeing with China on how this debt is going to be packaged. And for that, we have actually opted to go with a private partnership, and probably somebody refused, then I can understand. Because I want something packaged that will give me the economic facet to understand that once this road is built, once this SGR is built, then the inland economics will be sorted. Very quickly, on the example that we were talking about between when Kibaki did Thika Road, a lot of people actually also castigated it. They never saw how that would, you know, people are saying, we still have a road, we still have, you know, a dual carriage all the way from Nairobi to Thika. But now, Zainab, look at the small economies that have been built between Nairobi and Thika. Juja today, somebody living in Juja is almost somebody like living in Nairobi. Thika has actually been ready. You have so many people who are working in the city who are coming from Thika, and so is Machakos. So that's the kind, I think, of mindset that we should have. Loans, yes, we need to continue holding the government and the people who are mandated to account for these loans responsible. If loans can be used properly, I can guarantee you the deficit that we are talking about can actually, you know, be covered.
All right, Mheshimiwa, you agree with that?
Yeah, let me come in. Let me say that for me, this is the most successful belt and road initiative that Kenya has attended. You know, if you look at the outcome of this belt conference, we have come out with the promotion of trade. For the first time, we have a team that has gone to China and came back and told us that this is the openings we have created for the purpose of trade. And you know, trade is what we have been saying, that there's trade imbalance between China and Kenya. Yes. That we import more from China, yet we export less to China. So I think this was, for me, was very, very fundamental. Two, that one of the agreements that have been signed is a private PPA, public-private partnership arrangement that is going to help us to decongest the city. You know, this is something that has been ongoing for many years, and that we have not. The team is not coming back with a package of loan that has been committed. I think this is something that Kenya should celebrate. And for some of us who come from Kisumu, who are interested in this SGR getting to Kisumu, what we are interested in is how that line can be revamped, so that the flow of goods from Mombasa to Kisumu and therefore to the East Africa region is facilitated. So I think really there should be really no problem, because at the end of the day, these are things that will come at a cost. And if the government, through their own mechanisms, they will be able to do it the same thing, to revamp this one and allow the port of Kisumu and that area to be opened up, even for trade. I think for us, really there's no loss. But on the second issue is on the public debt. And I'm happy that I'm moving an amendment to PFM Act, which has been published, that I'm trying to strengthen Parliament as an institution for managing public debt. And of course, everybody knows that Parliament has not been consistent. They have not been very strong in helping Kenyans to manage public debt. First of all, Parliament decided to change the method for calculating our debt. That was done in the last Parliament, and therefore they gave Treasury leeway for Treasury to borrow. So for us, I think, for me, what I have done, which maybe I can highlight, is just two aspects of the debt which Kenyans need to understand. Is that one, Kenyans also need to know what are some of these debts that have been borrowed. Because today we just talk about 5 trillion debt, but we don't have the specifics. So at this juncture, I'm asking Parliament to give us a law through amendment of PFM Act, so that every year we want to be listed for in a gazette or in a local daily and a Kenya Gazette, all the details of the debts.
Source of accountability.
So for accountability.
Things, okay.
Two,
So,
which is more fundamental, is that if you look at the way Uganda borrows, Uganda there's the debt strategy paper, which is normally given to Parliament every 25th or every the 25th of February, 15th of February, alongside the budget policy statement. These documents come together. But you see, if you look at PFM Act Section 33, the details that is expected to be available by Treasury in that the debt strategy paper is basically just details of the amount of loans, amount of deficit that will be filled through borrowing. But I'm asking Parliament that in that particular document, Treasury will be able to list for us in that document a list of projects that we funded through debt, so that we know from Parliament is aware that this particular project we funded through debt and it will cost this amount, and this is the method of financing that will be employed. I think this is a missing point that has been lacking in that particular document. That is the reason why OUCO is unable to even audit some of these public debts. You've heard the OUCO saying that he was not able to see the particular development projects that were funded, that were implemented using Eurobond. Then the third aspect of my amendment to PFM Act is that I want to emphasize more. We are emphasizing more on bilateral, multilateral borrowing. This kind of commercial, external, foreign commercial loans, like the Eurobond type, they're actually the reasons why we really have this big hole that we are unable to pay for, to fill up. Because I think some of these resources were borrowed, whereas the law says that you can only borrow to fund the development projects. We have actually ended up borrowing to fund recurrent expenditure. And this is something that has created a very big gap for us. So I think we need to seal some of these loopholes so that we be able to monitor our debt and also let Kenyans participate in debt acquisition. Because as it is now, the budget policy statement alongside debt management strategy paper, which is submitted to Parliament, is just a hollow document, which really has no information in which the public can, through Parliament, can interrogate and be able to know what are some of these engagements the government is going to have in the area of debt.
Right. Some
Some of us in Parliament, even when we see this Arrow and Kimarer Dam projects, we wonder when were they thought of? Because they're humongous debts. We did not go through scrutiny of Parliament even before they were signed and they began implementing. So that is what we really need to do. And you know, when it is in Parliament, the people have a voice. They can come on board and be able to interrogate some of these debts. So I think the amendment is going to go through. It's going to be published, and I think I'm asking Kenyans to interrogate and even give us more information on how we can tighten our debt acquisition processes.
All right. Ben, you know, your also reaction to this, and what do you feel about the debt, the ballooning debt in the country? And of course, remember, this has tripled under President Uhuru Kenyatta's administration.
Yes. And unfortunately, that is an accomplishment that has been done in less than 6 years. There are two things we have to make very clear, especially to the majority of Kenyans, and also apologists to a system that has refused to be accountable to the people of this country. Number one, there is nothing wrong with borrowing. I mean, even at individual domestic levels, we do that all the time. The problem is what we use these funds for and whether we get value for our money. And I'll come to that in a bit. Secondly, it is also important to understand that when people demand for accountability, it is not equivalent to fighting development. You see, that is the narrative that has been bandied around. The minute you question SGR, people are like, no, you are anti-development. That's not the truth. Believe you me, The rest of Africa is currently embarking on massive infrastructure projects, particularly around railway systems. The reasoning is we need to be able to move our goods better and our consignments better. And everybody will be happy if we have efficient transport systems. The narrative that was ran at the initiation of the SGR was that we are going to be able to move a container from Mombasa to Nairobi at a fraction of the cost by road. Right now, you remember recently, Kenya Railways made it clear that it is impossible actually even to beat the trucks that we have on our roads. And that's the real problem, is in the way the National Treasury has been managing fiscal policy in this country. And I have been singing about this, Gabriel. I'll give you a scenario, for example. Right now, Tanzania is building over 2,500 kilometers of SGR at a cost of about 1.4 trillion Kenya shillings. That's about 2,500 kilometers. If we were to use the same value or the same rates that Tanzania is being able to build that railway system in the Kenyan context, our SGR from Mombasa to Malaba, which is about 961 kilometers, would cost tops 540 billion shillings. But what do we have? Nairobi to Mombasa alone cost us 327 billion shillings. Nairobi to Naivasha alone cost us 150 billion shillings. That's almost the cost at which Tanzanians would have delivered for us a railway system from Mombasa to Malaba. So this idea of inflating costs is actually where Kenyans have a problem, because one, it makes it impossible to repay these debts.
True.
Based on the projects that we are investing in. It makes it completely impossible. You saw actually even analysts coming up, especially around the costings for Kimwarer and Aro. Believe you me, if you were to focus or you were to critically think what you can do with 38 billion shillings, you'd be building a dam that is perhaps competing with Aswan High Dam in Egypt. We will not be building small village dams for that kind of a cost. But now, what we have is a scenario whereby procurement in this country has been taken captive by its entrepreneurs. These are people, even by the time these budget estimates are brought to Parliament, already people have foreseen how much they want to make from such a project or from that kind of a program. And because they have to keep accommodating all these funny interests, including the sadaka they have to be taking to church every Sunday. So the cost is actually becomes exorbitant. When you look at critically now the debt, and this is what Kenyans need to be aware of. Forget about the figures that Rotich keeps throwing at us once in a while. The reality is, as it is now, this economy cannot afford the kind of debt we are into. When we are talking about close to 60% of our annual revenue going to repaying debt, and you know our recurrent expenditure is usually about that 40 or 45%, it means there is zero left for development. So we are going to continue extracting money from ordinary Kenyans. You sell your potatoes at Wakulima market, whatever little taxes you pay, that money is collected and has to be shipped to China, because now we have to pay those debts. It's really an unfortunate scenario. And as Mheshimiwa is putting it, actually, the blame largely falls on Parliament, because for a long time Parliament has been sleeping on the job. It's a good thing that is coming up with this amendment. I also heard Alex Koske is also coming up with something, but it is too little too late. Already there is nothing we can do about the 5.4 or 5.6 trillion shillings that we have borrowed. This is money that has to be paid, and it is going to be a very painful process for this country.
And it appears that the government might just be forced to borrow more before June, that is the end of the financial year.
They have no option. Actually, now where Rotich is at the moment, because we cannot generate sufficient revenues locally, he has to keep borrowing to pay debts. Which is a circus, actually. We can't run a country like that.
There's something Ben has actually alluded to, which I think would be nice for us to just a little bit, emphasize on. When you look at the massive undertaking of what countries like Tanzania have done and Ethiopia, on a dollar to dollar, you'll realize that the SGR is cheaper, and it's in this way. Our land policy, and I think this is where we are getting a very big raw deal. Swazuri has been in and out of court. And if you ask me, I think part of the bigger pie of this debt actually should find itself entangled in Swazuri's office. Because this is where you're looking at the land where the SGR passed on being heavily escalated. When you go to places like Tanzania, land belongs to government. So when it comes for them to acquire that land, it's almost at a song, if any, I mean, almost, it's their land, so they can use it. You know, they'll just be able to move you from that particular land to another land. Now, no compensation at all. When you look at Ethiopia, probably same thing. In Kenya, and this is where I think our National Lands Commission really, we need to do something about that land policy when mainly we are talking about big projects. I know it is going to be hard, very hard indeed, because of the kind of land policies that we have, but this is the conversation that this country must have.
All right.
It is very unfortunate that when a country like Tanzania is paying, you know, almost and probably the same loans that we are going for, but we end up paying almost 3, 4, 5 times. It is actually very unfortunate. Yet they are looking to cover more kilometers than we are going to do. So really, if you look at it, it's good that we talk about this so that at least people can understand there's something that needs to be done in matters land policy. Having said that, there's also the 17 billion that you know, Uhuru got for the or the government rather got for the Konza Technopolis. When you look at the kind of delivery that will come from that place, that's an undertaking that every Kenyan should support. That's the kind, if you ask me, that's the kind of knowledge wealth that we are looking for. Because this is not only going to be entrenched in Kenya alone. I'd like to see what our accountants are doing. They have become, they are sought for, you know, in the entire continent. Just the other day, I was in West Africa, and I found Kenyan accountants there. They are very sought after because it's believed these people possess a very great understanding in matters accounts. And even in South Africa, the southern states, same thing. So if we are going to create these breeding grounds for academics and, you know, things like TVETs and, you know, just that particular professional knowledge, then it is going to work for us. Apart from that, I think the other thing that we so badly need is physical discipline that you know, Ben talked about. Failure to which we are going to be chasing after our tails. And it's wrong, and I agree to quite a high extent. It is very dangerous for us to be borrowing to pay our debt.
It's a cycle.
Yes.
Oh, it will be a cycle.
Vicious cycle.
It will be a cycle. So we must actually improve. We must do the high yielding of our exports.
All right.
Because that's the only way we can salvage this situation. We
Zainab.
must find something that we will be taking outside. We must
Yes.
create wealth that we'll be taking outside.
Zainab, I agree with my colleagues in the panel. But when we are at this juncture, when we are talking about the health of the economy, how the monetary and physical aspects of our economy have all fallen off. You know, before the Uhuru regime, you know, we had one of the most successful financial sectors in the region. You know, right now that sector is down, with certain banks having gone down. The confidence is not there. The sector cannot support our economy. They cannot support the SMEs, and then on the physical side, then we are having all these challenges of being unable to manage our public debt. We are not able to run our economy efficiently. You know, we cannot even raise sufficient revenues. We have a budget. We are given a budget as parliament that is almost fake because it cannot be funded. So then the question that we must focus now, our attention is: do we have the right people at Treasury? Do we have the people sitting at the corner office, the person sitting at the corner office of Treasury? Is he the best person for this economy? And I think this is the question that most of us are trying to avoid. And I've spoken about it, and I've said that I think the CS Treasury is incompetent. He needs to really just exit, you know.
In
If
fact,
he cannot be allowed to-
experts have differed with the Treasury Cabinet
Yes.
Secretary Rotich following, you know, the latest report
Yes.
on the
He is-
economic growth.
Yes, the man is, and by the way, if you look at the Treasury, even if you look at the leadership of Treasury, this is the only department of government, critical, that has people who were in that office 30 years ago still there. If you look at the heads of departments of Treasury, the economic policy, all those people, these are retirees, you know, and we have told him to at least get people, even my panel is here, to go and help him run the economy. He is not able to do it, and I think this is the focus that we must do. Even though we are going to blame government, and I've said that right now, as a member of opposition, we are supporting government in their policies. But we must continue to point out that if we have people who are clearly incompetent, sitting in those offices and being unable even to give the country the right proposition.
Do you think the CS is just serving the interest of the government by coming up with that economic surveying saying that we have a 6.3% GDP?
He's serving his interest. He's trying to survive. He knows he should exit, so he's trying to tell us that he's done some good job. It's Kenyans. So it's not about him. It's not about the government. It's about him. And I think it's high time, if we've been talking to him, I think he needs to give us space. And I'm happy that he was not in the trip that went to China. He was left behind, I think, because of his...
They'll come with more debt.
He had other functions.
I think it's because of his image has been tainted because of corruption.
We can't say that. We can't say that.
The time now, I think the guy needs to just exit if he can't leave.
All right.
Yeah.
Ben.
Actually, it is interesting that people keep insisting about Rotich is doing his own things, but I am on record, I keep insisting that fish usually rots from the head. There is a chance that even the president is very satisfied with what Rotich is doing because he's the appointing authority. That means as we continue making noise around here, as the economy continues sinking, the president is happy with what is happening and is satisfied with the results of what Rotich has been able to deliver. And this is one of the key things and to challenge what my brother Gabriel here just mentioned a little while ago. Those figures that Rotich threw at us last week, you remember during the Eurobond saga, Rotich kept coming up with figures after every 1 or 2 hours and throwing them on the Treasury website. Then people dispute this, then he comes back with something else. People dispute that, he comes back with something else. And he got away with that. Up to today, nobody knows what happened to the Eurobond money. That's a fact, because even the Audit General reports are clear on such. The other reason why I would not be excited about this, when they were talking about the trade opportunities that have been opened up, that particular belt, the China Belt Convention usually, is largely about infrastructure. Let's not lose focus. Unfortunately, we have a government that has perfected the art of public relations, cheap publicity, and trying to coin up stories to lie to Kenyans. The truth is, that was a massive vote of no confidence in the government that Uhuru Kenyatta runs today. In the fact that the Chinese have been able to realize, as I indicated here, I think a week or two ago, that this government has morphed into a pyramid scheme, whereby we keep pumping in money. We have to keep pumping in money, but there is zero return on investments. The reason I'll not be even excited about this avocado business and all that is we've been told many things since 2013 about the laptops and how we are going to have this kind of hubs, about stadiums. I remember the first trip that the president made to China in 2013 was in May with the then governor of Nairobi, Kidero. And they came back telling us that they have been able to secure funding, and it's on record actually, from State House. They've been able to secure funding to do an overpass from JKIA to Kangemi, or somewhere around there. 6 years down the line, we have nothing. A few years later, when the president went to the US, he met President Obama and came back very excited, telling us he has been able to secure, I think, 400 billion shillings of investors who are coming to do 1, 2, 4, 7 things. There is nothing to show for that. So when they start telling us about this excitement, I think even this idea of the James Gishuru interconnection to JKIA and what else, and Konza City, was just trying to deflate attention from the shame that they have been able to collect from China. Believe you me, there is nothing like that. Wait, there is not going to be Konza City before Jubilee goes.
So the
by
confidence,
2022.
you have no confidence.
Believe you me, there is not going to be Konza City by 2022. And that road from James Gishuru to JKIA is not going to be done. 2022 is only 40 months away. Yes.
Well, the government, the government, you know, the government is facing a lot of opposition from within. That is also the reality. That is why some of the things like their own corruption are, with the momentum, it begins with the momentum and then it slips back. So
fades away.
So I think it is good to be, it's good to be, not to be definite about some of these things. But I think from the point where I sit, I think that there's all the support, the government has all the support and the goodwill from us as members of parliament. to be able to realize any development project that they conceive. I think for us, we are going to give them the support. Yeah, but I think for going by their history of how some of these projects have not gone through, it is good to be, it's good not to be sure, you know.
Yeah, but Zainab, there's also something else which, and this I think is a conversation I've always had with Ben.
Yes.
There are some developments that really you do not expect to profit from, or you expect immediate gratification.
True.
You know, when you talk about something like a railway, like the SGR that we are seeing, currently it's still under the management of the Chinese. When you're talking about a road like the Nairobi, Mombasa superhighway that's going to be done by Bechtel, when you're talking about, the railway line from Kisumu, from Naivasha to Kisumu, these are developments that will take long before you start realizing it, all right? And I'm not saying that we stick up for the government. No, we need an element of responsibility. We must continue questioning government of what they are doing. We must see the need for such a development to take place. When a government will come and build a hospital or a school, immediately we should not come back and say, hey, how are we going to pay for this? Remember, there is an underlying virtue that we may not see. How many children are going to get educated out of that academic institution? A hospital, how many people are going to be treated? That is how you do the weighing and balances of the community. This is a social structure that is supposed to build the economy in the long run. How many doctors are going to come out of that school? How many accountants, and so on and so forth. So if we are going to train our sights that on anything that we build, we must immediately get a gratification, we are wrong. That is not how to build a country. But still, that is not to say that we should not hold the government accountable.
But
if we are able to make
billions of shillings, Gabriel, and we're still struggling to
Zainab,
pay the money that we owe.
You know, Zainab, whether it's now, during this administration, or the next administration, there's a gap that you must close. And that's the deficit that we've had.
Yeah.
That has to happen. It started with Kibaki. It continued with the president. And by the way, any other president who comes or administration comes in the near future will have this at hand. You know why? You are now competing with neighbors who have realized the magic of development. All of us are coming up at the same time, if you realize. What we are running after is what Ethiopia is running after. It is what Rwanda is running after. You know, we are chasing after one and the same. And that's why I'm saying we must also find other economic indices that are going to actually make us shoot to be in that world stage. If you had asked me, Zainab, if you had asked me, I would have said, let us concentrate on our horticulture. Let us concentrate on the things that put us in the world platform. Let us concentrate on things like coffee and tea. We need to negotiate and renegotiate what we used to have there before.
How is that going to be possible?
Because when Kiambu is becoming a concrete jungle, I have always preached against that, because that's not the right way we should be going.
Absolutely.
If you look at the acreage facet, how much you got from coffee, and when you build, a building, in that building, which is probably 8 floors, you'll only need 2 caretakers. In that 2 acres of land, you have so many people to till it in a given year. All right. So that's the kind of thinking that we should encompass. I would hope the government actually at some point puts up the handbrake and says, you know what, arable land cannot be touched.
Zainab, I think at this juncture, the government needs to stop their obsession with huge infrastructural projects.
Absolutely.
I think that's what is very important, that everybody needs to be aware of. Because we are creating a very big deficit every financial budget. It's a big deficit which actually we can do without. We really do not need to run a government that is at a big deficit. That must be funded through borrowing. And I say that because we have put in place some of the humongous big infrastructure projects, can we complete them? Also, I know I'm a bit disappointed that the SGR project is not going to reach Kisumu as at now. But if we do not really move very fast, because the CS Transport assured us that there's a way they are going to reconnect the SGR
and the meter gauge
railway line to be able to deliver goods to Kisumu. If that's not done, I fear that this SGR project is going to be a white elephant.
True.
And it is going to be like what we were told about the direct flight to the US, which it took off and then now are here. I don't know, once a week, once in 2 weeks, you know.
Yes.
Some of these things, I think, I don't know whether whether in this country we have serious policy researchers,
zero.
people who can think through things
Talking
before
of
they're
policy,
implemented.
you know, some experts would say from the very onset, the renovation of the meter gauge railway would have costed just a fraction
Absolutely,
of the construction of the SGR.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's true. And I think we got it wrong from the word go. We have spoken about the cost of our SGR line, which of course we all believe and know that it was highly inflated.
Right.
So again, that's one aspect of this SGR thing, which
Okay.
confound us. But
Right.
what we need to emphasize now is, with our support, I think the government needs to adopt prudent utilization of resources.
Right.
That is going to help us. If they adopt that mechanism, then I
Okay.
think we are going to be very keen on this this budget.
All right.
The budget that we are going through this financial year, we are going to be very, very strict on it.
Okay.
And we have already told Treasury that they should not come and promise us revenue projections which they will not realize, because they have been telling us we are going to raise 1.9 trillion.
Unrealistic.
Then they come and raise 1
projections
trillion.
that-
So
all right.
these are some of the reasons why we doubt experts sitting at Treasury. And I think if I became the president tomorrow or today, I will fire everybody in Treasury.
All right.
And I will sit at Treasury building and vet people who are answering the building.
Right.
Yeah, starting from the CS.
All right,
Yes.
Mheshimiwa. And I
Yes.
know we only have 5 minutes to
Okay.
end this, and I'd like to get, just a conversation on this as you make your closing remarks. You know, the Deputy President over the weekend also, he said, hey, this is all about 2022, and by the way, whoever will be selected for Jubilee, I will support. But is the Jubilee cracking, or has it already cracked? I'll start with you, Ben.
My answer would be very simple. In the last about 15 to 20 years, we have seen a scenario whereby multi-party democracy has been in the business of cannibalizing political parties. As we stand today in this country, we don't have political parties. I remember I had a discussion a while ago with my friend here, Gabriel. And I told him by 2017 the president will not be running on TNA. And he thought I was joking.
That's true.
And it came to pass.
Oh, and by the way, Moses Kuria has also come up with TINAP.
Oh, Tina.
Yeah, TINAP. It's called the Transformational National Alliance Party.
Of whatever. Whatever those terms mean. So there are no political parties in this country. The same way we talk about, say, the Democratic Party in the US or
All right.
and others. So when the DP says that, and there has been people even within Jubilee, and I think these people mostly are likely to be aligned to Gabriel here, who have been
Very quickly,
insisting,
Ben.
who have been insisting
Yeah.
that the DP stands no chance.
All right.
And I want to believe he means that,
Okay.
but as an individual, he is committed to ensuring that he runs for president in 2022.
All right.
How that happens remains to be seen.
All right.
But I want to point out something quickly for Mheshimiwa here. When you were talking about what the CS said about trying to see how he's going to link up the SGR with the
Meter
old
gauge.
railway system to deliver whatever it needs to be to Kisumu or Malaba or wherever. This is information that is coming from the same fella who painted Thika Road red
BRT.
and told us now we are sorted. Traffic done. This information about the failure to secure the facility for the continuation of the SGR came, I think, on Friday or thereabouts, isn't it?
Ben, very quickly.
Then
Yes.
a day or two
Yep.
later, the CS, he has not sat with any engineers.
All
He has
right.
not sat with anybody.
All
He
right.
comes up with information that, oh, don't worry, we are going to connect this. I mean, we need to get serious people in government.
All right.
That's the first guy you need to remove.
Let me-
Fantastic. Thanks.
Zainab, I'll do
Gabriel,
very quickly,
very
over
quickly, yes.
less than a minute. First
Yeah.
of all, on the political parties, I've always been an avid supporter of strong political parties. If you look at the countries that are really progressive in matters politics, you need a very strong base. And this is what I was talking, if Kenya was to have two, just like the way the American, or three at the very most, we're talking about strong political parties that are going to be based on nothing but vision.
Right.
They have a clear agenda of what they want to do with the Mwananchi that I'll support. And that's why, to me, I thought Jubilee had started very well. And even today, Even today, when you hear the Deputy President talking about, he said, we need something like this so that even the other team that doesn't make it into government, they have a very strong opposition. And by the way, that is what we need in this country. Strong parties that are able to keep matters running, and one on the other side that is able to keep the other, in check. So if we are able to develop on that, which is, I mean, that's going to be very good. Coming out toward the statements that he said, what the Deputy President is saying is this: I am not the chosen heir to Uhuru, and I expect to run with everybody who will actually be chosen through the party ranks, and probably they have a mechanism that will bring us to that particular person. So that's a very good thing, because he's saying, you know what, don't look at me as if I am the heir to the ordained person, to take over from Uhuru, which is a good thing. And very finally, I mean, finally, as we talk about this, because we changed the headlines, and we forgot to say this when we began. Congratulations, and we tilt our hats off to the marathon runners in London. Eliud Kipchoge, we tilt our hat out, and also Bridget Kosgei, thank you for doing us proud.
All right, Mheshimiwa, very
my final statement, I think Kenya has only one political party. The Orange Democratic Movement Party. That is the only party that has national outlook, has national representation, is the oldest. Jubilee is a party of two tribes, the Kalenjin and the Kikuyus. That's the problem. And
outright there, it's there.
That is what it is. So ODM will continue to spearhead democracy in this country by showing these other political parties how to run a democratic institution. Two, I don't want to talk about what Jubilee will do, but what I know is that right now where Kenya is, the problems we have will not be solved by one single political party. This is a moment all Kenyans must come together through an arrangement that will ensure that Kenyans talk about issues and resolve them as a collective team. Therefore, whether Jubilee will survive or not, for us, we are interested in seeing a united Kenya. We are saying that in the next election, if we get there, let us not have a government that is headed by tribalists. We want a government that is headed by all Kenyans, and a government that is singularly going to focus on how to resolve the challenges facing Kenyans.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mheshimiwa Samuel Watandi, Member of Parliament, Alego Usonga, Gabriel Mudhuma, Political and Governance Expert, as well as Ben Muller, Political and Governance Expert. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us this morning and for being part of the conversation this morning. NTV Today comes to a close here on NTV, but NTV Sasa is coming right up your way with a Jen Goiri. You do not want to miss that. My name is Zainab Ismail. Good morning.